Morton Salt, famous salt company. According to the allegation, black male complains about racism, he gets penalized. Put up the picture full mass. The Morton Salt Company faces civil rights allegations, a lawsuit filed by the EEOC on behalf of a black male with the gout who says he endured 4 months of workplace discrimination and retaliation because of his race and disability before he was then illegally fired. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission filed a complaint in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Ohio on September 30th, charging that the salt producer mistreated its black employee, Daryl Dorsey, after he opposed and reported a white coworker who had a known history of using racial slurs and harassing other workers. The lawsuit claims that Morton Salt's conduct violated Title VII of the Civil Rights Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act. Now, I want to say this. When the EEOC gets involved, that means that you have crossed some hurdles required for this to be a legitimate lawsuit. The EEOC does not simply co-sign on every allegation against a company. You do have to meet a particular prerequisite of evidence produced and sustained discriminatory practice. When you do that, the EEOC can get involved. So they allege that Kurt Conkle, a white employee who mentored and trained Dorsey after he was hired, May 2022, had a reported history of using slurs like the N-word and worthless N-word and engaging in harassing, abusive, mean-spirited, and threatening behavior since 2019. That's according to employee records. In June 2019, Morton Salt issued a letter stating that Conkle's unwelcome behavior is considered harassing to his co-workers, creating a hostile work environment. Conkle was fired at that time, but then rehired a week later, according to the complaint. Now, what do you have? If you didn't know, now you know, right? So according to your own records, he's racist. According to your own records, he creates a hostile work environment. So if you don't fire him, you could be sued or liable for what's called negligent retention of an employee. Once you fire them and rehire them, now you have a negligent hire. You hire somebody that you knew created this type of liability, not only for the company, but also adverse to workers. There's more. The day after Dorsey filed his complaint, the day after, he received an evaluation that rated him unsatisfactory. This is the day after. In the category of relations with others, specifying altercation with Kurt Conkle as the reason for the poor rating, the lawsuit argues that his unsatisfactory evaluation was unwarranted and constituted unlawful retaliation and racial discrimination. In August 2022, Dorsey reported to a supervisor that his car had been tampered with, making the brakes inoperable, and that he suspected that Conkle or someone assisting him had likely done so in retaliation. Dorsey asked for security footage to help determine what had occurred. He alleges that the company officials discussed but did not further investigate his concern. And on the following day, they transferred Dorsey from the pallet area where he worked to a different department, a move he had not requested. Later that month, a supervisor, Drew Mummert, sent an email to another manager expressing concerns about Dorsey's ability to work due to a permanent partial impairment and suggested that the company contact a healthcare provider to make inquiries about whether working at Morton Salt could and or would aggravate his impairment. On September 22nd, 2022, Morton Salt fired Dorsey for reasons the lawsuit claims are pretextual, but does not detail. The complaint also says Morton Salt's records show that, quote, persons to whom the company allegedly compared Dorsey were treated more favorably, including persons identified as white. On September 27, 2022, Mr. Dorsey made a complaint of racial discrimination and retaliation against Morton Salt's management. He also let them know he had made a complaint to the EEOC. The company refused to rehire him. The EEOC said it filed the lawsuit on Dorsey's behalf after first attempting to reach pre-litigation settlement through its conciliation process, which failed. The lawsuit claims that Morton Salt violated Title VII of the Civil Rights Act by discriminating against Dorsey on the basis of race, including when the company subjected him to desperate treatments, desperate terms, conditions of employment, discipline and discharge, refused to reinstate or rehire, and when the company failed to investigate or take appropriate action concerning his complaints or reports about Kunkel, race discrimination, retaliation, and wrongful termination. Next time, you better take that damn meeting. Morton Salt also violated the Americans with Disabilities Act when it took adverse action against Dorsey because he was disabled. The EEOC argued, noting that the company regarded Dorsey as disabled because he has gout and or another permanent partial impairment as a result of the intentional Civil Rights Act and ADA violations. The complaint says Dorsey was deprived of wages and employment benefits and suffered other compensable harm. The EEOC seeks order to force Morton Salt to promulgate and carry out policies and practices which provide equal employment opportunities to people protected by Title VII and the ADA, and which eradicate the effects of his past and present unlawful employment practices, including discrimination and retaliation. It also asks for back pay and front pay of Dorsey compensation for past and future losses and emotional pain and suffering, punitive damages, companies, malicious and reckless conduct mentioned. The lawsuit filed on behalf of Dorsey by the EEOC was one of a trio of lawsuits filed on September 30th, charging that Black employees in general were subjected to race discrimination in violation of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Quote, 60 years after the passage of Title VII, it remains more important than ever to ensure that employees are not discriminated against due to the color of their skin. That's what the regional attorney for the EEOC said. Her name is Deborah Lawrence. Quote, these cases underscore how insidious race discrimination is and why it is necessary for the EEOC to step in and defend employees against such misconduct. So, Morton Salt did not immediately respond to a request from Atlanta Black Star. So in a statement on his website, however, about Morton Salt's commitment to racial and social justice, this was posted in 2020, by the way, in the wake of senseless deaths of the death of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, Rashad Brooks, and far too many more. The company said, the time is now to step up and unite in the fight against racism and social injustice. It noted that as a company, we haven't done nearly enough. We must own our truth and take responsibility to do better in every possible way by better supporting the Black community inside and outside of Morton Salt, end quote. The company promised to take action to review and enhance our employment practices and policies, including hiring, promotion, and pay, and to improve training around its existing code of business conduct and ethics that defines our commitment to fostering a safe, inclusive environment where discrimination of any kind is not tolerated. All lies. All lies, in my opinion. All lies. Now, here's the irony of this whole thing. They had the opportunity to engage in a pre-litigation settlement in order to fix some of the issues. And what the EEOC is asking for was not outrageous. I promise you, after a civil trial, they're going to pay a whole lot more than what the pre-litigation settlement would have offered or subjected them to. So why did this happen? Why would you rehire a person that you already put in writing as racist? Why would you do that? And then fire the brother because you stretched a possible disability that could affect employment. Why would you do that? Well, that's because you have a culture of racism. Where's the tape? Who tampered with the brakes? You guys may end up getting into a criminal issue here, especially if you covered up somebody tampering with the brakes of a man. If you covered up that video, now you got criminal conspiracy. You done went from civil to criminal for messing with one black male. And I know good and damn well that's not the only black man you have been, let's just say, toying with. But you got the right one today. Jackson, Morton Salt. I don't know a black family that doesn't have Morton Salt in their cabinet, brother. This is a company that's been supported by my grandmother and many others around the world. And for them to have this kind of disregard for black folk that consume their product is insane to me.
And as you pointed out, you know, they went from civil to criminal, all for the sake of protecting their white feelings. Because I mean that's really all it is. Unfortunately, this is at a higher scale, but you know, at the end of the day, a lot of the time when you know black people or people of color get shunned in situations like this, it's for nothing more than I don't feel like thinking about this. I don't think about this mess. That's how they look at it. You know
Yeah,
what I'm
you're
saying?
right.
Like racism to people like this is it's a bunch of I don't have time for this. Get it
Yep.
out of my sight. And they feel heavily about that. Like people go to the polls over the idea of this. They shout it to the top of their lungs. DEI is a terrible thing. We have to get rid of it. Anytime anything goes wrong in this country, oh, it's because of that DEI mayor that they have. Like this is a genuine belief system. So much so that not only is it a part of the culture, but also they didn't move from civil to criminal, like you pointed out.
Yeah, it's insane. I'm glad the EEOC is being as aggressive as they are. We will keep you updated.